Welcome back to the IE427 garage, everybody. Today we're going to be working on some shop maintenance. I built the shop, I want to say it was back in 2007. So what's that? 13, so almost 15 years ago. And like a lot of hobbyists, call me that, a hobbyist. You know, you stick the air compressor out behind the shop because you don't want to listen to all the noise, and you tend to forget about it, except when it starts having a problem. And then, what could have potentially been a little problem had you addressed it earlier turns into a big problem. So basically what's happened is, you know, the compressor's 15 years old, and this is a Campbell Hausfeld compressor. So it's 80 gallons, 5 horse. It's a workhorse of a compressor, and I've never had any complaints with it. For the first few years, I had a tarp that I would put over the top of it in the wintertime so that, you know, rain and what have you wouldn't get into it. But then I eventually put rain gutters on the eaves of the shop, and so it doesn't actually get any rain dripping on it. It only gets, you know, driving rain when the wind happens to be blowing the rain at it. But regardless, I've neglected this poor thing for a while. I don't drain the tank as often as I should, and one thing I seriously neglected was changing the oil regularly. In the entire time that I've had this back here, so 15 years, I've probably only changed the oil in the crankcase of the pump twice. So with that, about 8 months ago, I hadn't used the compressor in probably 3 or 4 months, and I had noticed that it was getting a little bit louder, but I didn't really think much of it. I turned it on. I actually turn the breaker off in the shop because I don't like it coming on in the middle of the night because, you know, I do have neighbors here. So I turned the breaker on, and it was locked up. The compressor wouldn't turn, and the breaker tripped, and of course I thought, well, the motor's got it, so I'm gonna have to replace the motor. Came out here, pulled the belt off, the motor ran fine, so the pump was locked up. So what I did was I pulled off the air filters. The air filters are right here. So right here. I pulled off the air filters and I sprayed a little penetrating oil down in the cylinders, and then I drained the oil and I replaced the oil, and I turned the compressor back on, and I'll be damned, it ran. I mean, it was loud. I mean, really loud. But it ran. And so I thought, well, when I get, you know, a chance, or when I see a pump for sale at a reasonable price, I'll buy a new pump and put it on. So if you watched one of the videos here recently, I picked up a new pump. I picked it up from Harbor Freight. And so with that, it's about the same size. It's a 145 PSI, 5 horsepower rated pump. And today I'm going to be installing that where the Campbell Hausfeld pump once was. All right, a little farther along, I've got, I had to pull a lot more stuff off this than I thought I would. I thought I might be able to get the pump off without taking off the guard, but that just wasn't the case. So in order to get the guard off, I ended up having to pull the pulley on the motor. Of course, to get the belt off, you got to loosen the motor. So I've got it slid all the way that way, and I got the belt off, got the pulley off, got the guard out. I went ahead and I took the air filters, these 2 air filters right here, off of the existing pump because they're metal, and if they'll fit into the exhaust or intake ports of the new pump, I'm going to choose to use those. I'll just clean them up and paint them because they are metal, and the ones that came with the new pump are plastic. So I'm also going to have to take off this piece right here, which holds the upper part of the guard on, and I might have to modify it for the cylinder head on the new pump. I'm not going to pull the pulley off. I tried. I pulled the bolt out of the end. I tried putting a puller on here. I couldn't get the pulley off, so I just figured it was easier to take the guard off than continue to mess around with that. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull that bracket off the top and then pull the pump out, and I'm just probably going to sit it right there where I've got those air filters right now until I can drain the oil out of it, and then I'll probably end up taking it to the recycle yard, and I might even get a couple dollars for it. We'll see. I wanted to show this. The oil had gotten so bad that it got all milky and clogged up the window, the sight glass window on the side of the pump. And you can see this is the original pump. It still has the CH in it for Campbell Hausfeld. So again, I'm not complaining. This is what, 15 years old, and I got good use out of it, but the tank's still in good shape. The motor works really well, so I'm just going to go ahead, put the new pump on, and see how she works. All wrapped up. I went ahead and I put on the Harbor Freight plastic air filters or mufflers or whatever they are. They are air filters. I've got it filled with oil. I've got it a little bit full, but I figure once I start it and the oil splashes around, it's probably going to, get in the rings of the compressor and seat them, and so I figured a little bit more is better than not enough. One thing I will say is you guys are going to watch me walk in and turn on a Decora switch inside the shop. That switch activates a relay in this box. Since I do electrical for a living, I wanted to be able to turn the compressor on without having to go to the breaker box, and I didn't want the compressor running all the time. So that's why it's on just a switch. That switch just activates the relay in here. I don't have the final outside guard on because I want to test this before, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn the switch on, which is right here, and there we go. Just try to kick on. See if we can bleed off some of the air right away. One of the valves. So it's building pressure. And that quick, we're already about 40 pounds. So belt looks good. Got a good alignment on it. So I think we're going to call that good. I'm going to go ahead and get the cage, the guard on the outside, and then I'm going to put the tools away, and I'll bring you guys back. Hopefully it will have built pressure and shut itself off by then, and we'll take a final look. All right, so that's it. We got, we're holding steady about 100 and, I don't know, probably 135, 140 pounds. The compressor kicked off when it reached that pressure. Everything's nice and hot, so of course it smells like burning paint on the pump housing. But other than that, I'm gonna probably just keep an eye on it over the next few weeks. I don't use the compressor a whole lot anymore because most of the tools have been replaced with cordless electrics, but we'll see. I got in the house last night and I found that I lost an entire portion of what I thought I had filmed. It was probably my own fault. I probably didn't hit record, but I didn't want to leave out this part because it was a pretty important part, especially for those of you thinking about replacing the compressor pump on your own compressor. Not all of these compressors have the same fittings. So as you're trying to adapt them to your tank, you may have to be creative in the manner in which you connect these things. I had purchased some adapter fittings, some 3/4 inch NPT to 1/2 inch NPT, a reducer, and then a 1/2 inch NPT to 1/2 inch flare fitting that I was going to use for this right here. So this was an existing piece of the compressor. This came out of the old pump. What I found was that the actual piece, and I have it right over here from the Harbor Freight compressor pump, this piece here that people were telling on their website that is 3/4 inch NPT is not. I believe it is a bigger size, and it is in fact a flared fitting. So you can see it's got that domed shape to it. And this fitting here is not 3/4 inch NPT. The threads in it are different. I think the threads are 18 threads per inch or something like that, or maybe 14, and an NPT is not that. So I bought the fitting at the local hardware store thinking it would screw on there, and I figured, well, if worst came to worst, I would just use some Teflon tape and thread sealant, and then just tighten it up until it didn't leak. Well, it didn't work. So as you can see, I took this piece right here, that would have been right here, yeah, something like this. I guess it would have been right here on the Harbor Freight compressor pump, and this side of it is 3/4 inch NPT. So what I did is I took this piece off the old compressor pump, I took off the cooling fin tube that joins the two heads of the pump, and I pulled off the 90 from that pump on this side. And so those threaded right in, and then I was able to rebend. I was able to put more bend in this piece. It was more of just an arch before on the old pump, and on the new pump I just had to, bend it up and then make this bend on this side sharper. So with that, the compressor's, it's working great. I turned it off, but it seems to be holding pressure pretty well. I dropped the regulated pressure on the output down to 100, and it's held there since yesterday. And then I'm probably going to replace this gauge. I'm probably going to replace this gauge. It's gotten so hard to read. The sight glass is actually plastic, and so it, being exposed to the weather for all these years has gotten to the point where you just can't see through it, so it's just going to be easier for me to replace that so I can actually see what the tank pressure is versus the regulated output. And I'm going to do that probably at the first oil change of the pump. The recommendation for break-in on the pumps is about 100 hours of use. So that'll probably, 100 hours of use. I don't put a whole lot of use on it. Will probably be sometime in the summer. So maybe June, July. And I'll drain the oil, replace it. And since I have to have, the no pressure in the tank when I do that, I'll probably just go ahead and replace that gauge at the same time. That'll give me some time to buy the gauge, and I'll just put it aside so that when I do the oil change, then I can change it. If there becomes a point between now and then where the tank has no pressure in it, then I'll replace the gauge then. But it sure would be nice to be able to see the gauge. And then I did replace a fitting that was leaking over here at the bench. And so far so good. It hasn't leaked. I went ahead and I replaced it. This is a quick change one, so you basically just push the fitting in and it locks, and then you just have to pull the collar back to unlock it, which I thought was pretty nice. None of the other ones that I have did that. And this is a universal fitting, so pretty much any 1/4 inch industrial, type M or type T, I think fitting, they'll all fit in that thing. And I'm probably going to change most of the fittings out. I've got a couple hoses hanging over here. I've got a hose hanging over here. Probably going to change all of those out to the same style, or at least change them out to the M, which is the red colored connectors, and because that's what we use on all of our construction compressor hoses. A lot of the nailers and finish nailers, brad nailers, even the framing nailers, they like, you know, that amount of air, and so we've just found that those just kind of work the best for us, and they can handle a lot of abuse. And out on the job site, they get hit with things. You drop things on them, or you drop the hoses themselves, and they tend to get abused. So that's what we've always used, and so we're just going to keep using those. And if I ever need a hose from, you know, an extra hose, I can grab one from the shop here and take it to the job site, and there's no, you know, I don't have to change any fittings or anything. So I feel like I'm kind of rambling on. I'm going to go ahead and throw this into the video, because as I was editing it last night, I just noticed a whole section of me going through all of the stuff that I used from the old compressor had vanished, let's say, and I think it was just the nut behind the camera forgot to hit record and thought thought he was talking to the camera, and he wasn't. So anyways, carry on. I want to thank you guys all for watching. If you enjoy the content, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, and all that good stuff. I know this isn't the most popular kind of content, but it still has to do with the shop. It still has to do with the cars, because that's one of the tools that we use to get the work done on the cars. We don't always use air tools anymore. They're not as popular in this shop anymore, simply because we've replaced a lot of the pneumatic or air-driven tools with cordless electric impacts and stuff like that. However, we still need the air to inflate tires. We still need the air every once in a while. You know, the cordless electrics are great, but when you've got a nut or something that's really stuck on there, it's nice to grab, you know, one of the air hammer type impact guns and just power off whatever that is that's stuck. So we're going to still maintain the air compressor at the shop. Again, thank you guys all for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.